Welcome back to Post-Traumatic Thriving. We've got a wonderful guest, Anthony Brown in the house, and Tanya Brown, my co-host.
Hi, fabulous.
How you guys doing?
This is good stuff.
Anthony, I got to tell you, I've been working on disasters for a long time. Normally, the way it works is that with trauma, the baseline's kind of normal, normal life, happy, and then you hit a trauma. You're hitting trauma right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally, from the umbilical wrapped around your neck when you're born. You're born into a family where your mom is doing her best with you and another brother and two sisters, but you don't know who your dad is. And your brother and your two sisters know who their dad is. But you're growing up with violence, literally in your playground. You're growing up with drug dealing, stealing, crime, an ugly thing. And then you move to California and you're dealing drugs and you're getting a little bit of money, you're working in carnivals, living in deserted homes. I mean, it's pretty overwhelming what you went through. And we're not even at, the low
summit
point
yet. Yeah,
we're not at the low point. So I think we're all dying to know, Anthony Brown, tell us about life and leading up and tell us about the low point.
Okay. As I was saying, my mom passed. I got a phone call. By then I was able to get a job at a state facility because I haven't had like a criminal record per se yet. And so I got a phone call from my brother who somehow found me and he said, Tony, mom's dying. And I'm thinking, well, no, she got shot in the head. She's not going to die, And so then I get a call from my sister and said, Mom wants to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. So I'm talking to her and she's like, I'm dying. I'm like, okay. And in my head, it's like, well, Mom got shot in the head. She's indestructible. And then I got a phone call the next day and said, Tony, Mom's dead.
Mm.
Oh.
And at that point, I'm like, everything I had, every drug I had, every ounce of money I had, I mean, I'm already stealing stuff. And back then, you used to be able to go to the ATM machine and put in an empty envelope and draw out money. And I took as much money as I could from everywhere, and I caught a plane and I went back to Michigan. And I seen my mom, and she was like laying there. I'm like, okay. My first thoughts is like, well, she died from cancer. She died at home. Where's the pain meds? And that's what I was thinking more than anything.
Oh my gosh. You're sitting there visiting your mother, viewing her body, and what's on your mind is where's the meds
Where's
the meds to steal?
Right.
Wow.
And let me get the hell out of here.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, because I was a stranger in a strange land. I haven't seen nobody. I mean, my older sister looks like my mom. So I recognized her. My younger sister, I didn't recognize. My niece, I didn't know who she was, because when I first seen her, the last time I seen my niece, she was 2.
Right.
Now she's like 16.
And then how long had it been since you'd seen your sisters?
The same amount of time.
Same amount of time.
I haven't seen nobody when I came out here.
Uh-huh.
Wow. Okay.
And so, so I went, we buried my mom and I came back out here again. And that's when everything just went bananas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bananas is one way to put it.
Yeah.
I don't know what helped me back, even trying to work or even trying to live or even trying. And I think it was my mom, just even knowing. But once that was it, then that was the last person on earth. That was my last connection to reality.
Okay.
And so I just went bonkers.
Berserker. Yeah. Berserk.
I started fighting, got assault charges, selling drugs wherever I felt, sleeping wherever I felt, just not caring, And I started going to prison. I went to Donovan, then I got out. I went back to Harvard Wilson.
Wait, let's take it one at a time. So how old were you when you went to the prison the first time?
I think the first time I went to prison was in 1993.
Okay.
And so that would have put me at 30. 35.
Okay, so mid 30s.
Yeah,
mid
got
30s.
it.
33,
All right.
something like that. Yeah, and so I went to prison, and that's why I taught myself how to read too. In prison.
In prison.
So up to this point, did you really not know how to read?
I mean, I had 8th grade education.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dropped
you know,
out.
Yeah, and so I started reading the Bible. And then I started just reading novels, you know, and each time I would go back to prison, I would read novels. Like I read all of Louis L'Amour's. I read all of Daniel Steele. I read all of Dean Koontz. I read all of Stephen King. I read all of Sue Grafton. I mean,
I just love the fact that you read Danielle Steele.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I was locked.
But anything to pursue that.
Right. Because I was locked up for so long.
Yeah.
So I went to Donovan the first time, and I did 8 months and 20 days, and I got out and I went back to Harbor and Wilson, and I thought that maybe I should hide my drugs a little better, and so I thought I could stuff them all in that little coin purse in your jean. Like I'm a big old drug dealer, and everything can fit in that coin purse. And so I got arrested again. This time they sent me to Chino. And then from Chino, they sent me to Avenal prison. And I got out of Avenal. I went back to Harbor and Wilson, and I got busted again. And this time they sent me to...
How far in between?
Oh, I would do, at that time, I would probably last maybe 3 months at the most. I would always seem to get out around the beginning of the year and always go back, you know, during the summer. Always.
Yeah.
So you're in the system, you're dealing drugs, you keep getting busted.
Mm-hmm.
You must have, so the sense of being invincible from birth to, you know, your late 20s when you first get arrested, that invincibility must be crumbling a little bit. You're getting nailed over and over again.
No, that made me stronger.
Oh.
Because I have prison cred now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about prison cred.
It's called cred?
Prison cred.
Well, cred. Once it's a weird psychology, but once you become a convict, it's like, yeah, especially in my circles, then you're something like out here in the land of normality. I call it Squaresville. Out here, you guys say, oh, somebody's been to prison, somebody's a junkie. Ooh, where I'm from, they're like, dude.
You're it.
You're it. Yeah. I mean, you're the man.
You're big dog.
Right.
Okay.
You know, and so I didn't see a problem with it. I mean, I go to prison. I got a place to live, you know,
food,
clothes, clean clothes, showers.
Friends.
Yeah. I mean, I knew people.
And you're reading a lot.
Yes.
Are you kind of at this point kind of surprised by your kind of intellectual abilities to really get into these long novels? And
no, I just didn't have nothing else to do.
Okay.
You know, and so I would read. I learned the Bible by doing push-ups. That's how I studied the Bible.
What does that look like? What do you mean?
Like the 23rd Psalms. It's like I'd say it and I'll start doing push-ups. And if I made a mistake, I had to start all over again from the beginning.
Oh,
Wow.
Well, you know, I know enough about prison because I volunteer up at St. Quentin to know that not everybody's reading. Not everybody's reading the Bible. You know, you made a choice in prison to start reading the Bible, reading novels. That's not everybody's doing that. Did you recognize you were kind of distinct in that?
No, not really. Because when you're in prison, you do your own thing. You mind your own business.
All right.
And that was just my program.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have money to buy a TV, you know, and so I'd utilize what resources was there, which was books. And so I would read and do my push-ups. I went to Bible studies as time went on. And so I'd sit in prison and I'd start questioning, like, well, there's a problem. You know, why am I in this situation again? And so I get out and I would go back to Harbor and Wilson. And instead of keeping the drugs in my jean pocket, my best plan was to keep them in my socks. And so I went back to Harbor and Wilson. I got busted again. I got sent back to prison. And I thought about it and it's like, okay. And then I went back to Harbor and Wilson. And I thought if I keep the drugs in my hand, I could throw them when the police come. But I got too loaded and forgot it was in my hand. And so I got
So
busted.
you're dealing and using.
Yes.
Which is not a good combo.
That's a good combo. Yep. You have to.
It's a good combo?
Yes, because you have to know you have quality.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You have it.
And the
You have it.
quality control measures.
Right.
Drug dealing world, but all right.
And so that was that. And mostly, when I look back at it, I dealt drugs just so I can have drugs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So this is a way of supplying your own habit.
Exactly.
Okay. Because I thought the number one rule was, dealing drugs don't use. That keeps it more profitable.
No.
Not for you.
Not for me.
Okay.
And so I'm going through that. And I got out. And so by then, I think I probably, Avenal, Chuckawalla. I think I got sent to High Desert. And that was in 1995. And that was a brand new level 3, level 4 prison. And it was interesting.
Gnarly.
It was extremely gnarly.
Yeah.
Because whenever a new prison opened up, everybody has to stake their territory, which means people die.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And that was the first time prison wasn't fun. It was all about survival.
Oh, wow.
So you're bouncing around a bunch of prisons in Southern California, but then you finally go to a prison where it wasn't so fun.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is, And so I got out of there and I thought that, okay, I know what the problem is. And so when I got out, instead of stop selling drugs, I thought the location was the problem. And so instead of going to Harbor and Wilson, I went 1 block south to Harbor and Victoria. And then I got arrested again. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, a police officer, and I didn't know anything about police officers work a certain beat. Mm-hmm. And it was the same police officer that arrested me every time. He knew me.
Oh.
Okay.
And he asked me, he goes, don't you think you should do something with your life? And that was my first real moment of clarity because I didn't know something was wrong with my life. And then he told me, don't you think you should do something different? And
how old were you when the officer said that to you?
I was 35.
Okay. So from birth to 35, it hadn't occurred to you that you're operating outside of normal.
Right.
And this cop's statement to you kind of woke you up.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because probably people have said things to me throughout my life, but I didn't hear it. And I think at that point, I was just tired.
Yeah.
I was tired.
You were ready to hear it.
Yeah.
So you're 35. This cop tells you this comment. It wakes you up that maybe you're outside of normal. Well, then what?
Well, I didn't know exactly what was wrong, but I knew something wasn't right. And then that's when I go, yeah, And so he arrested me again. He put me in jail. I didn't know that he had a friend that had a treatment center. And usually when it's time for me to go to prison, okay, my whole mentality changed. My whole outlook changed. My whole facade changes. Back then I had hair. I'd cut all my hair off. I started doing a bunch of push-ups. I don't smile. I'm ready to go into prison. And so I got ready for that. And instead, some lady came from a treatment center and she's like, do you want some help? And I'm like, okay. And then she scholarshiped me into a treatment center.
And is this your first trip to a treatment center?
First ever.
Awesome.
Okay. Wow.
At 35.
At 35.
Wow.
Okay. So, then what?
Well, initially I thought, okay, I'm going to sell drugs out to treatment center.
Oh gosh. All right.
What a cover up,
Right.
And, but something happened, when they picked me up from the treatment center, normally when you get released from San Diego jail, they release you about 12 at night. Mm-hmm. And, this time they didn't release me at night. They waited till the next day and a lady came, Jill, I'll never forget. And she was all happy and everything. And she's like, I'm coming to pick you up. And her first thing was, do you want a cigarette? And I'm like, okay. Cause I'm so used to, if you want to give me something, you want something. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you want a cigarette? I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking, well, what does this lady want? And then she said, well, you want to go eat Chinese food? I'll never forget that.
No.
And I go, yeah. And then she took me to this treatment center and she goes, do me a favor. If you're going to leave, walk out the front gate. Don't jump over the fence.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these guys are trusting me. And then I walked into this environment and everybody's all happy and huggy and giving. And I mean, Marnie gave me a bag of cheeseburgers and like, welcome. We're going to love you till you love yourself. And I'm like, and they were nice, you know, and they put me in an apartment by myself. And I didn't know till later on because I had anger issues, you know, and they put me in this apartment by myself. And then that's when I got introduced to the 12-step community and all of that stuff. And things got different, you know, people were being nice and they were consistent. And I'm like, okay, you know.
So the way I kind of get your story is that you're from 1 to 35, you're kind of in this weird state of quote, in air quotes, normality with drugs and violence and dealing and using and your mom being shot in the head and surviving. But 35, your mom dies. And that sends you off to a spiral that sends you into all kinds of bouncing around all kinds of prisons and jails over and over again. And then you're invited into a treatment program. That's the first time where you're kind of getting some stability in your life. Is that fair?
Yeah. Well, my mom died probably when I was 32. Then that's when the wheels fell off. And then at 35, I got introduced to the treatment place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
was that around here? Where was this treatment center? What city was it in?
Newport Beach.
Okay.
I finally arrived.
Finally arrived.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's called the Rehab Riviera in Southern Orange County.
And it was cool.
Okay.
That's good.
So this is where you started to get back on your feet.
Not necessarily. That's where I was like, getting back on my feet. That's when I was like starting to develop new legs. Okay. And I always tell people my life up until that period was like the negative portion of a Polaroid picture. Okay. It's a picture, but it's all dark. And that was my norm. That's how I lived. And then I'm casted into this other place that's saying, dude, this is like the way you're supposed to live life. And I'm like, well, what is this? You know, I mean, you're supposed to smile. You're supposed to help people. I was a stranger in a strange land. I mean, people will come up and go, let me hug you. I'm like, get away from me.
So you had trouble just kind of
adjusting,
loving people, basically, and letting people love you and get to know you. And
don't touch me.
Just kind of your walls are up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you didn't like yourself, nor did you even like love yourself, right?
Yeah, I didn't love myself. I didn't love people. I didn't love life. It was like just neutral.
Yeah.
You know? And then they're like, you know, I was there and then I went to my first 12-step meeting and it was a shock, you know, and I'm like, okay. And I'm glad I went to the one that I went to because those guys were like all just rough and crazy and cussing and smoking and, you know, tell me things like, if you want to drink, here's a couple dollars, go get drunk. Don't come here and BS us. You know, it's like, oh, this is cool. Or if you want to fight, go in the parking lot and do it, but come back in and make amends. And I'm like, I'm grateful I got introduced that way because they spoke my language. I understood that.
Right.
You know, I wasn't one of those people who, we're going to love you. It's like, no, you're not.
So it wasn't like the phony love bombing, shallow love. It was more you're hearing people talk real language. I've been in enough treatment centers to know that there's some very straight talk.
Yeah.
The BS is over.
Yeah.
You can't con the con man.
Right.
Right.
You know, when I go into San Quentin prison, I said, well, how do you know these guys aren't just going through this program to fake it and get a parole and get out? And they go, you know what? They can fool me. I can be fooled, but they can't fool each other.
Right.
You know, the other inmates, they know what's up.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in this environment where you have to kind of face the music and you're with people that aren't going to be BS'd.
Like-minded people.
Yeah.
Who know exactly, you're quintessential manipulators, right?
Oh, yeah. And they wasn't having it. I mean, they were like strictly business. Yeah. Either you want to get sober or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Period.
Right. But don't lie about it. Because you're not going to be us. And if you want to get high, go get high.
Yeah.
But when you get real, come here because we're about getting real.
Yeah. Right. Ready. Right.
Yeah.
If you're ready.
Yeah. And it was cool because I remember the first time I even shared, you know, I'm like, I raised my hand and go, yeah, I'm an alcoholic and this treatment center is abusing me. They're making me make up my bed and I have to do chores. It's like, that is, yeah, that is not right. You know, I got to mop floors. No, I've been homeless.
Scrubbing Sundays.
Right. It's like, what's up with this? And everybody clapped. And then the next guy, he goes, my name is Pete. I'm an alcoholic. And he goes, you're a whiny little, and then he called me the B. He goes, you're a whiny little bitch.
You can say it.
It's all good.
And he goes, you're a whiny little bitch. So shut the fuck up.
It's all good.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Okay. So
they give you, they give you a little whoop.
So you're a convicted convict. You've been in the pen. Right. What does it feel like to have a guy call you a whiny little bitch?
I'm like, this is cool. You know, because that's just how we roll.
Okay. So you like that. It sounds like you like the honesty.
Yeah, he just gave it to me raw and uncut.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
then
good.
asking to be my sponsor.
Awesome.
But he's your sponsor.
That was my first sponsor.
Very cool.
Okay. So you're in a recovery program.
Mm-hmm.
You're facing the music.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting while you're saying, Anthony, is a lot of people hit rock bottom and they go seek help. Seems to me like this lady came along and took you into this Newport Beach recovery program. She identified your problem when you hadn't really identified it, but nonetheless, you're ready to hear it.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Well, the cop is the one that, I mean.
Okay, the cop.
Yeah, they always said that there's an Eskimo in your life. It was him.
Okay.
You know, because he arrested me so many times. And finally he goes, dude, don't you think you should do something?
Okay.
You know, and I knew him. I'm like, okay, yeah, what? You know, and then everything else followed.
So how many times did you run into this cop over the years?
Probably quite a bit.
Yeah. So you had developed kind of a weird relationship, almost a weird, he's arresting you and you're going off to jail and prison, but in a way it's almost, it's kind of a friendship in a way. I mean, he cared about you as a human enough to kind of talk to you rather than just going through the procedures of handcuffs, booking, jail, and all that. Kind of what I was thinking. There's kind of a relationship there.
Yeah. Well, after a while, after you get arrested so many times, I mean, why even run? You know, there's a place, okay, whatever. You know, because that's how my life was. It's like, it didn't matter.
Right.
You know, and so I'd see him. He's like, hey, come here. It's like, okay. It's like, what you got? Oh, here. Okay. You know, I know the drill. You know, I'm dehydrated. I've been up forever injecting meth. Give me something to drink. You know, I'm ready to go to sleep. I'm tired. You know, but this time, you know.
Yeah.
Well, he said something at the perfect time when you were ready. How does the saying go? Like the teacher doesn't appear until the student is ready. Is
that's bingo.
Yeah. So that's it.
Was. Yeah.
So, you know, to all the officers out there who are listening to this, you know, even wives or partners of officers, like take that, say, you know, hey, aren't you ready? Aren't you kind of tired of this? Because had that cop not open up his mouth at that time, who knows where you would be today?
Right.
Because he spent an extra 2 seconds to say, hey, aren't you tired of this?
Right. And I didn't even know I was tired.
Yeah.
I was on autopilot.
He saw it. He saw it in you, though.
Yeah.
That's interesting. From the cop and to the woman in Newport who met you and got you into rehab, people are identifying, they're seeing you as a human who is, you know, in this situation, they're seeing things that you're not seeing yourself, but you're ready to wake up and listen. And you deserve a lot of credit for that. Yeah. Because a lot of people stay very, very stubborn. You know, they bunker down, they defend their right to remain ignorant. You, on the other hand, had some humility to say, hey, well, you know, why is this cop telling me to, you know, is this really the life I want? And really, you know, I mean, prior to being invited to go into recovery, had the thought occurred to you, maybe I should go to recovery?
No.
Yeah.
No.
You didn't even know what recovery was. You probably didn't even know what treatment was. Or if you did, it's like, oh, those people need it, not me.
You guys are in Squaresville.
Yeah, we're Squaresville.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm the first to admit I'm in Squaresville, but
I am too, with 4 sharp edges.
we'll get to your Squaresville. Yeah. So fascinating. So you're kind of accepting the help, despite the fact that you're not going after it directly. You're accepting it when it's offered, and you need big credit and a big shout out to the officers and the first responders and the people in the community, because we see them I have a call tomorrow morning with the homeless shelter with some stuff I'm doing to help out there, because there's a lot of people in the community that have had lives of privilege. I mean, just speaking for myself, I admit it. I had 2 great parents. Our house literally overlooked Disneyland up on a hill. But I realized that, and I realized that with that comes a responsibility to not just play golf, and nothing that's wrong with golf, but, do some things to kind of contribute to the
Make
community.
A difference.
This cop helped out, this person helped out, and you're accepting that help. And you're in this recovery center where you're waking up to this whole new world that, hey, your BS isn't going to fly here.
Right. I'm just like you.
Yeah. You can't do that. And they were just, people have already went through that transformation.
Yeah.
And they knew what would happen if I did what they did.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it.
Right.
All I know is it's like at the treatment center, everybody's nice. And then this meeting I'm going to, everybody's giving it to me brutal, which is nice. And so it was like the perfect storm.
Okay.
And so then that's when I was there, and after a while, I remember even being there. I had a roommate, and he was sitting in a reclining chair, and there was an ottoman in front of him. And instead of me going around the back to walk out, I cut between him and the ottoman, and the bottom of his foot hit my leg, and I slapped him, because that's where my mentality was. And I felt so bad after I hit him. Because I did my best to be so good for 4 months, and I slipped, and I actually cried.
Oh my gosh!
It affected you.
Yeah, and I went to the counselors, and they're like, "Why did you hit him?" I was like, "I don't know," and I felt bad.
For the first time.
Yes, and it's like, oh my God, because I was doing good. 4 months of no anger, 4 months of doing what I'm supposed to do, and I screwed up.
But it sounds like you had instant remorse over that.
Yes.
And that's commendable.
Yeah.
I mean, because a lot of people, when they screw up, unless I screw up all the time, you want to defend your bad behavior, but you didn't do that. I mean, you to the point of crying.
Yeah.
Right.
And I presume you apologized.
You felt
to him?
bad.
Yeah. I apologized to him, and because the counselors had us together.
Sure.
Because the contingency of me being there is like, if I violate parole, I go back to prison. Okay, well, I really didn't care about that. But the fact that I was really trying to do good.
Right.
Yeah.
And that hiccup happened.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
And so we talked to the counselor. Guy was there, and I apologized. I go, dude, I'm sorry, man. I mean, because I really didn't even want to do that. I don't know what happened. And he goes, well, I forgive you because that's all you know. And I'm like,
see? It's all you know.
Wow.
I wanted to slap him again. Right there on his spot. I'm like,
But
no, you didn't go there, dude.
The truth is kind of brutal, isn't it?
Right. And it's like, okay.
That's a beautiful response.
Yeah, that hurt. Yeah. I'm starting to get feelings. Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to
Damn those feelings.
Right.
Feelings. What are those? But how beautiful. Like, you were not only making amends to him, but you were also making amends to yourself. Like, I feel bad. Like, I honestly have remorse. Not only did I hurt you, but I also hurt myself.
Yeah. And we got through that,
through communication.
Yeah. And I didn't really know how to work, and they made me get my first telemarketing job. They made me get it because I didn't.
I just didn't get that. They made you do what?
They made me get a job.
Oh, okay.
God forbid.
Yeah.
Like a real job.
Yeah, like a real job.
So aside from the Carney thing, which is quasi-legitimate, even though you're a 15-year-old kid, I'm sure there's an employment law breaches, laws being broken there. Was this the first time you worked at the fast food on Harbor?
I worked at the fast
So
food.
you've had a couple legit jobs.
Yeah, but I've been always under the influence.
Right.
And this is my first
sober
job. I mean, because I worked at a state facility as a janitor.
Right.
And I even tried to go to school once, but I was always under the influence.
Okay.
And so there was nothing successful.
Right.
And so now here I am. They're telling me, because I didn't want to leave. It's like, no, just let me stay here. I'll cut the grass and everything. And she's like, no, you have to go get a job. And I'm like, and it was like,
and not just a job, but a job sober.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Holy cow.
For the first time.
Who wants to do that?
Yeah.
For the first time.
For the first time in your life.
Right.
And you're how old now when you're getting your first job while you're sober?
I was like 37.
Okay. This is crazy interesting because you're drinking beers at 6.
All right.
You're injecting by 11 or 12 or 13, something in there.
Yeah.
You're injecting, and there's pot in there. There's the alcohol. There's the wine. You're basically going through life while your whole developmental system is going with the brain neurology. You're under the influence. I guess that's your words. I think that's exactly right. And now you're in your mid to late 30s,
right,
for the first time, voluntarily, willingly wanting to get a job while sober for the first time in your life.
Right.
Yeah. Is that fair?
Actually, I was 35.
Okay.
And I wasn't willing. Okay. She said I had to.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
It's a requirement.
Yeah. It's like, you got to get a job.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I felt safe in that treatment center.
Okay.
Because I did everything from 18 to 35 in Costa Mesa. And this treatment center's in Costa Mesa.
Okay.
And I know everybody that's anything, anywhere. And it wasn't the fact that I was worried about relapsing. It was just, I was doing good in that environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was confined. It was confined.
Yeah. And you're telling me to go out there.
But it seemed like a safe place, and you liked being for the first time in your life in a safe, sober place.
Yeah, people were nice.
Yeah,
it was like cool.
They were nice, but they were also real.
Yeah.
They weren't passive. They weren't aggressive. They weren't passive aggressive. They were assertive, meaning they were kind, but they weren't going to put up with any BS.
And also not even expecting anything from you.
Right.
Yeah.
Just get your life right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm doing that, and I finally got my first job. And it was telemarketing, and because she scholarshiped me and I had to pay her back. And so I would get my paycheck, I'd just write my name on the back of the paycheck and give it to her, and then one of the counselors taught me how to budget. He said, this is what you do. You cash your check and you keep $50 and then you give the rest to them. Because I had no clue on how any of this stuff worked.
Yeah.
So you're learning basic financial manament
the skills.
At the age of in your mid 30s.
Right. Because I knew 28 grams made an ounce, but
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
And baking soda and cocaine, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I knew that stuff.
So you knew all the recipes to cook up great drugs.
Right.
But I didn't measure them.
Right.
You knew the metric system, and I'm still, I can't get that right. I can't get my head around that.
That's funny.
Yeah. And so, but that knowledge doesn't work.
Okay.
And so I'm getting the job as telemarketing, and that's when my first sponsor left, and I got my second sponsor. And he was interesting. And I remember I would call him up, and he would say things like, because I'd be like, hey, dude, what's up? And he's like, well, my name is, so-and-so, and say hello. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I was in transition, and I really was like, so I'd call him up, just go, hey, dude, what's up? And he'd hang up on me. And so I'm like, then I talked to another friend. I go, my sponsor keeps like hanging up on me. He says, I don't know how to talk on the telephone. And he's like, well, what do you do for a living? I'm like, telemarketing. He goes, do you make money? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, then you know how to talk on the phone, so just get rid of him. And so I did. And then I picked up Dave, who taught me this, like everything's about spirituality. You know, he would put his hand, and Dave was cool because Dave would say it's a spiritual thing, but he also would give me permission to sock people in the face. As long as I'm willing to pay the price. He taught me that one. You could do anything.
As long as you're willing to pay the price.
Pay the price. And I'm like, okay, I'm okay with those rules. You know? And so he used to always, I'd say me, and I'm just like new into this whole sobriety thing. And he would put his arms around me and he hit me in the chest and he goes, Antoine, it's a spiritual thing. Okay. You know, and so that's when I started like looking at this whole spiritual thing. It's like, God is not just it's a thing. And so, because the God that I knew, you know, was like, hey, rescue me, but you didn't rescue nobody else. So why should I call on you? You know, and my relationship started to change.
With God.
Yes.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I was real curious when you're talking about when you're in prison, you're doing push-ups to Psalms 23. Was that maybe, you tell me, was that kind of a beginning of your spiritual awakening, or you tell me?
It was my beginning of lessons from God. Okay. I got to see his work in writing, you know, examples of what he can do. Okay. But I never, ever knew until I had my spiritual awakening. Had no clue. And so, I knew about what he did for other people. You know, I knew that people had to go through hell before they get to heaven.
Okay.
That's all examples I've learned in the Bible. And so I understood that, you know.
Right.
And because to me, it was just another book to read, you know, with some good lessons in it. And so I understood that. Dave would say everything's a spiritual thing. I heard that, you know, 12-step program taught me how to pray and all of that stuff.
Was that hard at you at first?
Praying?
Yeah.
No, I prayed when I did too much drugs. God, please don't let me die. Or, you know, God, let my mom live, you know, all that stuff, but never.
On your knees praying. And, Yeah. Asking for help, giving gratitude. Yeah.
And so that occurred. And then, you know, I got introduced to the 12 steps and the book and the fellowship and, you know, all of that stuff. And it was good for a little while, you know, and then I thought like, well, maybe I could do it again, but differently.
Okay.
And so I went out and I tried some controlled drinking and then I did some controlled substances.
You did it your way.
Yeah. And then I ended up in a controlled environment.
And how did that work out for you in a controlled way?
Well, I went out and started drinking. I ran into a friend of mine who had a meth lab in his house.
Okay.
And I would go. I seen his wife. She was going to the donut shop, and she says he's in trouble. You know, his parole officer says he has to go to some 12-step meetings. And it's like, well, don't you know I have like a year or so sobriety? I got a big book. I'll handle it. You know, so I'd go to his house where there's a meth lab, and we'd talk about recovery and play Nintendo. And then I'd go back and we'd talk about recovery and play more Nintendo. Then I'd go back and play Nintendo and a little recovery. And in the meantime, I'm seeing all of the craziness that goes with the drug world.
Yeah.
And I missed it, you know, because I'm living a life where I get up and I go to work and
make your bed,
make my bed, and go to meetings. And, you know, it's like,
it's boring.
Yeah. Like elevator music.
Right.
You know?
Oh, I like that.
You know,
it's like
and then I go to this
music.
place and it's like Metallica, you know, and,
elevator music.
Yeah. And so it's like, and I was going there, and since in that environment, I knew my friend really well. I was probably a good customer, but I went there, and at one point in time, he's like, do me a favor. I don't trust none of these people around me. Hold the money, you know, until you leave. So give me a wad of money to hold for him. And it's like, okay. And so I'm like, in the recovery world, I was nothing. There,
you were something.
I was somebody again.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'd leave and I'd give him his money. And then he'd come back and he goes, well, here, you know, hold the bag of drugs. So I don't trust these guys.
You were needed.
Right. You know, and it's insane trying to walk that line.
Right.
It's insanity. And so finally came that one point where somebody had my favorite drug in a spoon, was sitting there, and they just said, "Well, do you want some?" And I'm like, mm-hmm.
And so you're blowing how long of a 18 months of sobriety?
18 months.
Wow.
In one decision.
It was incremental.
Yeah.
It was going there. I mean, I could have at any given point in time gone, no, I'm not going there.
Okay.
You know, I could have, when I seen his wife, I could have said, thanks, but no thanks. You know, I had to physically get in my car and go to his house, walk up to his door, knock on his door, walk inside his door, sit down consistently.
Yeah.
You know,
it was a decision.
Yeah. You know,
thought out.
Yeah. And then I'd go to meetings at night, and it was like, okay, here I am, you know, elevator music. Mm-hmm. And I go over there and it's like,
you're rocking.
Right. Yeah. And it was just like, I mean, here I get $50. Here I get the whole 5,000.
Right.
You know,
so cheap, easy money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Versus
a hard earned, you know, honestly earned $50.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just didn't balance out. Then once I did that first drug, that was it.
Okay.
It just.
You're hooked again.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to get into that first drug and what happens. But to recap, I mean, basically what I'm hearing is that you are going along in this weird, you know, quasi-normal of life of dysfunction. You don't even know there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
The officer wakes you up with a comment, you know, don't you want to do something with your life? Then this lady invites you into a rehab center in Newport Beach. You get a job with telemarketing. You're earning money honestly and in sobriety for the very first time. But I think, and then you're talking to people in the rehab center, they're talking real rather than, you know, manipulation and BSing each other. You get sober for a year and a half, and you describe that as kind of elevator music. Whereas when you start kind of wandering back to the meth lab and your buddies, that's more like Metallica. You know, it's like rage and fun. You're feeling the adrenaline, and there's kind of a contrast between this boring, honest life of sobriety, and now you got the high, you know, volume, you know, crazy life of the drug world. And you're offered a spoon with, what was the drug in the
methamphetamine.
So with meth, a very dangerous drug.
Yeah.
And after a year and a half, you give in, you take the meth. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game over.
Then what?
Then I tried to balance both worlds.
Okay.
And it's really hard living in a sobriety world under the influence.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard.
Right.
Especially a drug like meth, because you're paranoid, you know. And whereas I used to eat all the time, I'm not eating. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm avoiding people who I know are going to call me on my stuff. You know, so I'm avoiding meetings. And, but that's okay. You know, I mean, it worked for a hot second. And then finally there was, it's really interesting because once I started doing meth again, I wanted to be sober so bad it was pathetic because I missed the normalcy.
You had a taste of it.
Yeah, I miss being calm and sleeping, and you know, I kind of missed the elevator music.
Yeah, the tranquility of that. Dang it, I missed that elevator music.
Yeah.
But now you had something to, again, compare and contrast. Like, had you never been exposed to treatment or rehab or, you know, with your friend and AA, et cetera, you probably wouldn't even be having these thoughts. But now, since you've been exposed to that, now you're like, I kind of miss being calm and meditating and sleeping and having that structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there came that jumping off point where I couldn't deal with living both lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's when I did mine. I remember in the 12 steps, there's like the ABCs, you know, I'm an alcoholic, cannot manage my own life. No human power can relieve my alcoholism, and God couldn't will it if you're sought. And I said at that point, it's like, you know what, God, I'm like so done right now. Just help me.
Mm-hmm. Say that slower, because I think, like the ABCs, say that slower, because I think some people would love to hear that.
Oh.
I know it, but yeah, say it slower.
Oh, I'm an alcoholic. I cannot manage my own life. No human power can relieve my alcoholism, and God could and would if you were sought.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think that hit my head, because like They always say it, a head full of 12-step program and a belly full of booze don't mix. And that is so true. And a head full of 12-step program and a body saturated with methamphetamine will drive you crazy. Because all I kept hearing is keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. I mean, just going over and over and over and over in my head. And it just drove me bananas. And so finally, on March 26th, I said, you know what, God, I know what's going to happen and I can't deal with it because I have to be physically removed from society to stop drinking and using. I have to be. And I said that on March 27th, I got arrested. No, March 28th, I got arrested. And my sobriety date is March 29th, 1999.
Yep. And you just celebrated 23 years.
23 years.
Yep.
Oh,
yep. 23 years.
Yeah. And it's really cool because I was homeless for 23 years and now I've been sober 23 years.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Half of your life.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
23 and 23.
23 and 23.
Wow.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that falling off the sobriety wagon is not the end of the world. In other words, people can get back on the saddle.
Yes. And you can get back on even stronger. Even stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really crazy powerful.
Yeah.
So is it been 23 years of elevator music?
A good question.
Oh my God, dude.
Good question.
23 years of Pink Floyd.
It's in between.
No. Pink Floyd is way better than Metallica.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you're going for the Led Zeppelin. I mean, that's the pinnacle.
Dude, you would not imagine. And I'm going to tell you guys about it. But after that, I said, thanks God. You know, I didn't go anywhere near Costa Mesa. I got busted in Riverside.
Okay.
With 67 grams of meth in the backseat of my car.
Wow.
And the lady that had the treatment center, she also does alternative sentencing. And so she even came and represented me.
What's alternative sentencing?
Instead of going to jail, you go to treatment.
Okay.
And I'm big on that.
Yeah, for sure.
So big on that.
Well, this mass incarceration problem in the country is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, the jail system, the prison system is monetized to, you know, and it serves certain individuals well to see lots of people incarcerated.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of the high schools in our country are just factories for prison to manufacture criminals to go into prison and monetize the prison system. There's got to be smarter. What I'm saying is there's got to be smarter ways to go about this problem.
Yeah. Our system's very punitive. And if we can bring alternative sentencing, which is, you know, we see a lot of that in the drug court, right? The DUI courts, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know the term. I didn't know the term.
Okay, so what I think where we are is we've talked about the survival. You've gotten on your feet, 23 years of sobriety. I want to get into the Thrive section, and I think that's the next episode. So let's stay tuned for the next episode where we talk about what that looks like in terms of thriving. Because I know you've done some crazy successful things in those 23 years of Pink Floyd.
No, I needed to listen to some Pink Floyd.
Oh, Tanya, yeah, for sure. Yeah, get with it. So, okay, post-traumatic thriving, where we talk about whether we're going to die, survive, or thrive.
The choice is yours.
Thanks for supporting our podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on your favorite social media. For books, merchandise, or to donate, visit CoreIQ.com. Post-Traumatic Thriving is produced by CoreIQ, a nonprofit with a mission to teach the life skills we all need but are not taught in school. CoreIQ and the Post-Traumatic Thriving podcast are for informational purposes only and do not provide medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your licensed medical and mental health care providers.